Hello and welcome to our webinar, Magnificent Middle Grade. I'm Julia Smith, Books for Youth Senior Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a selection for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions and will pass along all other questions to today's panelist, so they will follow up with you after the webinar. Finally, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Golda Rademacher, Library Sales and Marketing Director at Norton, Elise Levine, Sales and Marketing Director at Shadow Mountain Publishing, Dina Sherman, School and Library Marketing Director at Disney Publishing, Colette Perry, Marketing Associate at Charlesbridge Publishing, and Molly Fletcher and Karima Carrillo from Albert Whitman. We will start with Golda Rademacher. Golda is the Library Sales and Marketing Director at Norton, and she is excited to help celebrate Norton's 100th birthday this year. Founded by William Warder Norton and Mary D. Herder Norton in 1923, W.W. Norton and Company is the oldest, largest book publishing house owned by its employees. You can find Golda on Twitter, Instagram, and sometimes Mastodon at W.W. Norton Library. Thanks for being here, Golda. Golda, are you muted? I'm sorry, we're not hearing anything. I want to make sure we get your presentation.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Sorry, it must be my headset. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You can find my contact information and our latest catalog through these links on the slide. And on the next slide, Norton is celebrating our 100th anniversary this year, but of course, Norton Young Readers hasn't been around that long. We started the imprint in 2019 and have had several award winners since then, including the recent YALSA Excellence in Nonfiction Award and Coretta Scott King Honors for Victory Stand. Abuela Don't Forget Me received an honor for the YALSA Excellence in Nonfiction Award, and It's My Whole Life recently won the National Jewish Book Award for Young Adult Literature. Our first middle grade title for 2023 is Link and Hud, Heroes by a Hair by Jarrett and Jerome Pumphrey. You probably know them from their picture book, The Old Trek, or their early reader book, It's a Sign. Now they are branching out into chapter books with a new series about two brothers with very active imaginations. The book is a combination of graphic novel and prose with the parts that take place in the boys' imaginations in graphic novel format. But sometimes the real world bleeds into the imaginary world, as you can see in this spread. The real world chapters also have fun illustrations to help break up the text. In this first book in the series, Link and Hud learn that sometimes a babysitter is not exactly who she seems, And sometimes you really do need a villain to make your adventures more fun. Jarrett and Jerome have posted some preview videos on their Instagram that I hope you will check out. Fishing in Fire by Trent Reedy is the third book in the McCall Mountain trilogy. Each book in the series can be read on its own, but the characters' backstories do build in each one. These are outdoor adventure books set in the rural Northwest. In this one, a bunch of friends are going fishing, but there's some middle school drama brewing in the group, and the feuding friends end up having to work together to get out of the forest when they spot smoke rising from a forest fire. This should appeal to your readers of outdoor adventure and survival stories. Making More by Catherine Roy distills the science of reproduction into its simplest components. Organisms must meet, merge their DNA, and grow new individuals. And she thoughtfully highlights the astonishing variety of this process with examples from across the natural world, from plants to insects to fish, birds, mammals, and more. Both School Library Journal and Kirkus have given the book starred reviews, with SLJ calling it highly recommended for nonfiction and even parenting collections, where it will fly off the shelf with science-loving kids and neutralize any adult melodrama around talking to kids about sex. Lucille Ball Had No Eyebrows. This is the sixth book in the Wait What series by Dan Gutman. These short biographies are aimed at grades 2 and up. Gutman manages to find a great mix of well-known and little-known facts about the person, and he makes it lively by writing it as a dialogue between a brother and a sister. For example, did you know that as a studio executive, Lucille Ball greenlit Star Trek and Mission Impossible? We publish these in hardcover and paperback at the same time, so you can choose which format works best for you. And here are the 5 other books in the Wait What series available now. And this fall, Dan Gutman is working on one about the Beatles. Virginia Wouldn't Slow Down is an illustrated biography of Virginia Apgar, the doctor who developed the test for evaluating newborn health that's used worldwide every day. Born at the turn of the 20th century, Virginia Apgar soared above what girls were expected to do or not do. She wasn't quiet, she wore all sorts of outfits, she played the sport she wanted to, and she pursued the career she chose, graduating near the top of her class at Columbia University and becoming only the second board-certified female anesthesiologist in the United States. The simple 5-step test she created has become the standard and continues to impact countless newborn babies' lives today. The back matter includes more information on the impact of the Apgar test, a timeline, and some photos of Dr. Apgar. Carrie Pearson's jaunty storytelling and Nancy Carpenter's playful illustrations capture the energy and independence of a woman who didn't slow down for anything and changed newborn care forever. We published the adult edition of The Monster's Bones by David Randall last year, and it seemed like a natural fit for a young reader's edition since the book was inspired by his son asking where the dinosaur bones in the museum came from. This book tells the story of 2 very different men struggling to fill the empty halls of New York's American Museum of Natural History. When fossil hunter Barnum Brown unearths the first Tyrannosaurus rex fossils, socialite Henry Fairfield Osborne sees a path to save his museum. As the public turns out in droves to cower before this bone-chilling giant of the past and wonder at the mysteries of its disappearance, Brown and Osborne turn dinosaurs into a beloved part of culture. Journeying from prehistory to present day, from remote Patagonia to the unforgiving badlands of the American West to the penthouses of Manhattan, The Monster's Bones reveals how a monster of a bygone era ignited a new understanding of our planet and our place within it. Vision by Precious Perez is the 5th book in our Eyewitness series of first-person narratives by young activists. Precious was born blind, but with family and teacher support, she has followed her dream of becoming a musician and singer. She is now a student at Berklee College of Music and an advocate for the disabled community. And then we are also releasing a Spanish language edition of Hurricane by Salvador Gomez Colon as a paperback original. Each of the books in the Eyewitness series offers compelling narrative nonfiction from individuals who offer authentic perspectives on global issues. We have an educator's guide available for the first 4 books, prepared by Dr. Sonia Cherry Paul, which I will link to in the next library newsletter, but you can also get it through the link on the slide once you download the slides. So our fall catalog isn't quite ready yet, but since I have you here, I wanted to point out 2 middle grade titles on our fall list. Flying Up the Mountain by Elizabeth Irene Beatty is a sequel to her Africana Book Award honor title, Crossing the Stream. And White House Clubhouse is the launch of a new series of time travel fiction starring the daughters of a new president traveling to different points in history to help past presidents. Sean O'Brien worked for President Obama and Vice President Biden and now teaches at Georgetown. Mona Lisa and the Others is from Thames and Hudson. This tour of the Louvre Museum features portraits and other person-centered artworks from the Louvre telling their own stories. Featuring additional illustrations by Quentin Blake, Mona Lisa and the Others is an entertaining introduction to the Louvre's collection that should appeal to children, parents, and teachers. Let's Fill This World with Kindness is also from Thames and Hudson. This is a nonfiction anthology featuring tales of kindness from famous historical figures and regular people. An introduction talks about the importance of kindness and how it benefits our brains and bodies when we give and receive kindness. Each chapter includes illustrations to help break up the text, and each chapter concludes with a list of questions for readers to help them reflect on the ways they too can be a kindness superhero. So we always have more titles than I can fit into the presentation, so I hope you'll check out our online catalog. But I do want to call your attention to 2 young adult titles before I finish. All That It Ever Meant by Blessing Musariri was just published last month. It received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and School Library Journal. Kirkus said, "A stunning, heartbreaking twist at the end will have readers turning back the pages to immediately reread this remarkable novel, an inventive, exquisitely written story of family, love, and loss." And in nonfiction, Michi Challenges History by Ken Mochizuki is a biography of Michi Weglin, the fashion designer who wrote Years of Infamy, the untold story of America's concentration camps, which became a major catalyst for passage of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, where the US government admitted that its treatment of Japanese Americans during World War II was wrong. I send out a library newsletter 3 or 4 times a year with a giveaway for print ARCs, so I hope you will subscribe to that. You could also find digital ARCs for many of our titles on Edelweiss. Thank you again for listening, and sorry about the audio problems at the beginning, and I hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you so much, Golda. We'll now hear from Elise Levine. Elise is the Director of Sales and Marketing for Shadow Mountain Publishing and is a veteran book publishing professional who has worked on a wide range of books from Nickelodeon to Nancy Drew Mysteries to the Arden Shakespeare. She left New York City to move west to join Shadow Mountain Publishing. Take it away, Elise.
Shadow Mountain Publishing is a clean content publisher, which for us means our children's and YA books have no violence, drugs, sex, or foul language. And in the titles I'll be presenting to you, you will see that our characters don't live in some utopian world of goodness, but face all the challenges of growing up in today's world. First up is Brandon Mull, the best-selling author of Fablehaven and Dragon Watch series. In March, we'll publish Carnival Quest, the long-awaited series finale to the Candy Shop War, where magical candies give kids superpowers to fight a family of evil magicians. And since it takes place in a carnival, there's also a lot of scary elements, with a particular emphasis on creepy clowns. Coming in August is the first ever official Fablehaven cookbook, wondrous recipes inspired by the characters from the series, and it will feature a Brandon Mull original short story. Coming in March from J. Scott Savage is the debut of the series Grayson Fox, School Treasure Hunter. He's a fedora-wearing pint-sized Humphrey Bogart who navigates through the bowels of his school to find a long-lost chest of toys which were confiscated from generations of bored students. The book is written in a colorful film noir style, peppered with similes and wise life lessons, like when Grayson describes the playground as where fortunes are made and lost. It's also filled with school humor, like having Grayson find a saved stack of textbooks titled Our 38 States. Book 2, coming in January, is Grayson Fox and the Curse of the Illuminati. Janitor's School of Garbage is a standalone follow-up series to Janitors by Tyler Whitesides. In it, a former student in the first series is now a teacher and founder of the School of Garbage, who is training a new generation of young garbageologists to trash talk and fight evil. The premise is that garbage comes to life in animated creatures called junklets, who wreak havoc in elementary schools, and specially trained kids from the School of Garbage are sent to stop the rise of the trash monsters. The school is reached through a magical portal at the bottom of a dumpster, and the kids are in a race against time before the entire world is literally trashed. Next up is Middle Grade Empathy Building with a new title from McCall Hoyle, featuring a dog friend from the book Stella in Just Gus. Gus was rescued after being abused as a puppy and trained as a livestock working dog. One day, Gus confronts a bear, and in fearlessly protecting his flock, injures his leg, making it impossible to continue his important work. He's placed with a family and meets Diego, who struggles with social anxiety. Gus realizes Diego needs a friend as much as his sheep needed a protector, but in order to stay with his new family and succeed in his new job, Gus has to learn to control his instincts like barking and patrolling the neighborhood. Let's hear a brief clip from the author, McCall Hoyle.
I believe the right book in the right hands of the right librarian or teacher or parent has the opportunity to change lives. And I think teachers, librarians, and parents will appreciate the gentle way that Just Gus addresses important topics like anxiety, loneliness, and even neglect and trauma.
This is a Young Readers adaptation of The Paper Daughters of Chinatown. It's based on the true story of Chinese girls who were tricked into coming to America in the late 19th century and were compelled to face lives of brutal servitude by unscrupulous Chinese gangs. This adaptation follows the story of Tae Choi, who at age 6 is being sent away on a boat arranged by her father, who has sold her off to pay gambling debts, a not uncommon practice in China at the time. Alone and afraid, she is forced to go by the new name listed on her paper documents to start her hard new life as a servant in a gambling den. The story mostly takes place when Tae, now called Tien, is age 12 as she perseveres through her ordeal until she meets Dolly Cameron, a real social activist in this era, with whom she forges a powerful friendship and the hope of a chance for freedom and eventually finding a new purpose in helping hundreds of other immigrant women from China regain their lives and assert their long-denied legal and human rights. The authors say that there are difficult chapters in American history, but it's important to read about them, and in doing so, we'll gain greater understanding, which will lead to more acceptance, and most important, they say, we will learn to love each other more as Americans. Virtually Me takes place in a post-pandemic world where kids who would have had social challenges in in-person school opt for a new virtual reality academy, thinking this is a dream come true. Avatars represent them in this 3D virtual reality environment, and the book follows several students as we see through their eyes that they cannot avoid the conflicts that made in-person school such a struggle. Coming in August by the same writing team of Chad Morris and Shelley Brown is The Wild Journey of Juniper Berry, a middle-grade fish-out-of-water tale about a nature-loving girl raised off the grid in a cabin in the woods who relocates to the city when her brother needs medical care. To help pay the family's medical bills so they can move back home, Juniper starts posting videos filled with things she's learned from observing animals and nature. Kids at school start to share her videos to make fun of her, but the posts go viral as viewers appreciate her wisdom and begin to see the world from a fresh perspective. A father's love for his daughter is joyfully expressed during their nightly routine when he braids her hair and shares imaginative and empowering bedtime stories in Only a Trenta Away. Trenta is Spanish for braid. In the story, Papa explains to Gia what the braids represent. This section will remind you of the people who love you deeply. This one is for the many people who will need your love. And this one will help you remember to love yourself exactly as you are now and who you hope to be. The author, Nadine Fonseca, says the book has themes of love and trust, but it also tells the story about a father learning to let go as he prepares his daughter to grow up to be strong and independent. Coming in the fall is an extraordinary picture book with a timely message about the good in humanity overcoming the evils of hatred and fascism. As Nazi armies invaded Europe, Jewish families found few countries which would accept them as refugees. Seeing their peril, Nicholas Winton set in motion an ingenious plan to legally send children alone to England to British host families. Parents begged him for help, and weeks later Winton returned to London with the names and photographs of hundreds of children, even babies, entrusted to him by their parents. 50 years after World War II, Winton's wife found this long-forgotten scrapbook, the only record of her husband's remarkable but never spoken of efforts. The world learned of this extraordinary humanitarian rescue and the fate of these children, all on live television. Let's watch the clip.
All the letters. But back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamant, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton.
And it was just so wonderful, so terribly, terribly touching.
Can I ask, is there anyone in our audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?
Let me mention 2 young adult titles. Beauty Reborn is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, about healing from the trauma of emotional and sexual abuse through the lens of a well-known fairy tale. In the story, Beauty's family is shown to be emotionally neglectful, and she therefore misses all the red flags from the first suitor who shows interest in her and eventually betrays her by sexually assaulting her. There's a key scene in the book where Beauty, after her betrayal, wishes people had banners over their heads announcing them as good or evil. The author says we already have this in a sense with Instagram, and reminds readers that this isn't real and people are complicated. Let's listen to a brief clip from the author, Elizabeth Lohan.
Since this is a YA novel, the sensitive topics are handled delicately. As the author, I drew on my own experience with trauma and recovery to write the story I wish my teenage self could have had. I wish I could say no teenage girl needs a heroine familiar with trauma of this nature. But the truth is, I needed one. I can only hope Beauty's story will offer comfort to anyone who needs it, and I hope it can be a resource for any educator or librarian who finds themselves in a position to help a struggling young woman.
And one more in YA. Journal entry, heading to school. I know what everyone will say. There goes the girl who tried to kill herself. This is the premise of Swimming in a Sea of Stars, a novel about teen mental health issues, particularly teens struggling with depression and suicidal ideation, with an emphasis on how healing and hope can come from small acts of kindness, and as such, every person can matter. Thank you, and feel free to reach out to me directly for any product information at ilevine@shadowmountain.com.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Elise. Next up, we have Dina Sherman. Dina has been the School and Library Marketing Director at Disney Publishing since 2009. Prior to that, she was the School and Library Senior Marketing Manager at HarperCollins Children's Books. Dina received her MLS from the University of Pittsburgh and has worked as a children's librarian for 10 years, first at the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, and then at the Brooklyn Children's Museum. As a librarian, Dina wrote reviews for School Library Journal and wrote articles and presented on the topic of museum and library collaborations. Welcome, Dina.
Thanks so much. And thank you to the first two presenters. Those were amazing books. I'm still a little emotional from Elise's presentation of titles, but anyway, those were fantastic. So thank you for having me today. As Julia said, I'm Dina Sherman. I'm the School and Library Marketing Director at Disney Publishing, and I'm excited to share some of our upcoming middle grade titles with you. First up, thank you. We have Robert Beatty's best-selling Gothic fantasy, Seraphina and the Black Cloak, which has now been adapted into a gorgeous graphic novel. Seraphina has never had a reason to disobey her father and venture beyond the grounds of Biltmore Estate, although she has to take care to never be seen, as none of the rich folk upstairs knows that she exists. She and her father, the estate's maintenance man, have secretly lived in the basement for as long as Seraphina can remember. But when children at the estate start disappearing, only Seraphina knows who the culprit is, a terrifying man in a black cloak who stalks Biltmore's corridors at night. Following her own harrowing escape, Seraphina risks everything by joining forces with Braden Vanderbilt, the young nephew of Biltmore's owners. Braden and Seraphina must uncover the man in the black cloak's true identity before all of the children vanish one by one. Phase 2 of the best-selling cross-publisher program, The High Republic, continues with this new middle grade adventure. And there's my cat who wants to join us today. This is new from Tessa Grattan. Under the guise of joining a contest to chart new hyperlanes, Das Lefbrook and Sky Graf recruit Jedi Padawan Rupert Natani, only to reveal their real plan: find the mysterious and legendary Planet X. And I'm sorry, I just have to say, Planet X always makes me think of the Daffy Duck cartoon where he goes off as Daffy Duck Dodgers. Anyway, total aside, but that is not what this book is about. The trio's quest takes an unexpected turn when they meet members of the Path of the Open Hand, forcing the heroes to put their goals aside to help the Jedi and the galaxy before it's too late. How to Survive in the Age of Dinosaurs kicks off the launch of a new humor-driven line of science and history books. Sure to be crowd pleasers with kids that love their action adventure, with a healthy dose of, I can't believe that's true, jaw-dropping nonfiction information. Imagine you're walking down the street one day, minding your own business, when suddenly you trip and fall into a gaping hole in the Earth's crust. It could happen. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. Now, lucky for you, you've stumbled into a wormhole and survived. Unlucky for you, you were transported back to the age of the dinosaurs. How do you get out of here? You have no clue. But first things first, you have to figure out how to stay alive. Kids will get the scoop on which dinos to run from and which can outrun them, what plants are safe to eat, and which Cocker Spaniel-sized bugs have the most protein, plus survival basics like the best place to build shelter, and is it even possible to build a fire during the Cretaceous? High-tech wizardry, old world legends, and a little bit of Disney magic all shine through in Shinji Takahashi, Into the Heart of the Storm, the second book in the Society of Explorers and Adventurers series from best-selling author Julie Kagawa. As Shinji struggles to understand and control his new guardian magic, the members of Sea learn that a sunken ship belonging to the long-extinct Natia people has been found on the floor of the Pacific Ocean. Shinji and his friends head off to check out the wreckage, hoping to get there before the Hightower Corporation can plunder the site. But nothing goes as planned, and when Shinji accidentally awakens a guardian who's been hidden on a mysterious island and trapped inside a volcano for a century, as you do, he causes a volcanic eruption and releases a massive hurricane that threatens the entire coast of California. Now Shinji must learn to control his powers and best his fears so that he can stop the destruction and regain the trust of Sea before it's too late. Part Princess Diaries and part Nancy Drew, Princess Private Eye is the story of 12-year-old Jen Sun, a New York City foster kid who uses her keen sense of justice and her ability to go unnoticed to solve mysteries in her neighborhood. She's in the middle of solving one such mystery when her life changes forever as she finds out that she is the long-lost princess of a small, obscure country overseas. But becoming a princess overnight isn't easy, and Jen's American ways and no-nonsense demeanor don't exactly endear her to the royal court. Before long, there are whispers that a legendary curse has been awoken by her sudden appearance. And when plague-like events start to befall the small country, Jen realizes she'll have to crack her biggest case yet, catching the culprit out to dethrone her. And who knows, she might just find her place in the kingdom after all. Okay, Percy Jackson fans, rejoice. Fan favorites and long-shipped couple, Nico and Will, have a book of their own. Rick Riordan has teamed up with award-winning author Marcus Shearer in this extension of the Percy Jackson universe. Nico is being plagued by a voice calling out to him from Tartarus, the lowest part of the underworld. He thinks he knows who it is, a reformed titan named Bob, whom Percy and Annabeth had to leave behind when they escaped Hades' realm. Nico's dreams and Rachel Dare's latest prophecy leave little doubt in Nico's mind that Bob is in some kind of trouble. Nico has to go on this quest, whether Mr. D and Chiron like it or not. And of course, Will insists on coming with. But can a being made of light survive in the darkest part of the world? And what does the prophecy mean that Nico will have to leave something of equal value behind? Nico will have to face demons both internal and external as his relationship with Will is tested to the core. And on the off chance you hadn't heard the news, Rick will be back this fall with an all-new Percy adventure, The Chalice of the Gods. The original heroes from The Lightning Thief are reunited for their biggest challenge yet, getting Percy to college when the gods are standing in his way. Ellie Engel Saves Herself is the middle grade debut of award-winning YA author Leah Johnson. Ellie Engel does her best not to stand out, but when a freak earthquake hits her small town, Ellie wakes up with the power to bring anything back to life with just her touch. And when a video of her using her powers suddenly goes viral, Ellie's life goes somewhere she never imagined or wanted, straight into the spotlight. Surviving middle school is hard enough. Surviving middle school when paparazzi are camped out on your front lawn and an international pop singer wants you to use your powers on live TV, and you might be in love with your best friend, but she doesn't know it? Absolutely impossible. This is a laugh until you cry, cry until you laugh story about friendship, change, and the power we have to love ourselves. This fantastic story, sorry, I had to, is an addition to the wildly popular Weird But True franchise, is perfect for shark superfans, trivia buffs, reluctant readers, and anyone who loves jawsome, facts and photos about a kid favorite topic, sharks. Did you know that great white sharks can detect a single drop of blood in the water from 1/3 of a mile away? And that fossilized dino poop has been found with ancient shark bites in it? The Weird But True franchise has more than 40 titles and 7 million books in print, and all of the books in the series are created by National Geographic contributors, including researchers, photographers, content experts, and educational specialists. Everyone's favorite alien, Stitch, is back in the second book of this globe-trotting detective series filled with graphic illustrations and comics, perfect for reluctant readers. After saving Perez from a snailian invasion, Stitch and his friends are off to the Big Apple. People have been disappearing all over New York City, and the Galactic Detective Agency suspects the group of shape-shifting aliens is to blame. Now it's up to Stitch to figure out what has happened to the missing people and save the day. But how do you solve a mystery when the suspects can disguise themselves to look like anyone, maybe even your best friends? And last but never least, we have some more amazing books coming from our award-winning and best-selling Rick Riordan Presents imprint. Gracie Kim's best-selling Gifted Clans trilogy, based on Korean mythology and folklore, comes to an end in The Last Fallen Realm. Riley O and her friends face their most dangerous challenge yet, venture into the god realm to defeat the goddesses before they take over the world. Fury of the Dragon Goddess is the follow-up novel to Sarwat Chada's first book, based on Mesopotamian mythology, City of the Plague God. Nothing less than the fate of the world is at stake when Sikander Aziz takes on the ancient gods of Mesopotamia when they get their hands on the mythic tablet of destinies. And lastly, The Spirit Glass is by Rashmi Chakshi, author of the best-selling Arusha series. Rash pays tribute to her Filipino heritage in this standalone adventure in which a young girl must go on a quest through the spirit realms to stop a vengeful ghost. That's it for me. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Most of our books are available on NetGalley or Edelweiss, but if you do need something in print, let me know. My email address is there. And please follow us on social media and check out all of our online catalog and our website as well for teachers' guides and more. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dina. Our next panelist will be Colette Perry. Colette has been a marketing associate with Charlesbridge for 4 years. She was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and holds a bachelor's degree in communications and music from Simmons University. Colette lives in Boston with 3 friends and a very spoiled leopard gecko. Take it away, Colette.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Charlesbridge has some very exciting middle grade to share with you today. We will start with one that just missed the last middle grade webinar, and then go into what we've got upcoming this spring and summer, and we'll take a very advanced sneak peek at a fall title from Charles Waters and Tracy Sorrell. Let's start with The Hope of Elephants, available now from Charlesbridge. Cass and her parents haven't let her dad's cancer stop them from having a good life, full of love and poetry and the annual World Series game. Now that dad's cancer is back, Cass overhears the doctor say that she has a 50% chance of inheriting her dad's genetic mutation, Li-Fraumeni syndrome. There's a test Cass can take that will tell her for sure. There's still so much she wants to do: play baseball, study at the zoo, travel the world with her best friend. Would it be better not to know? This poignant novel in verse from Amanda Rawson Hill is a testament to the struggles of family illness and the power of hope. Next, we've got Captain Skidmark Dances with Destiny by Jennifer Irwin, coming April 4th. Will is a Canadian 8th grader who hates hockey, and he sucks at it too. Will is bullied at school, doesn't have any friends, and is generally miserable. His 17-year-old hockey star cousin Alex is the cherry on the sundae. When he comes to stay with Will's family, the boys hate each other on sight. Then Will stumbles into a local ballroom dance school and discovers that for the first time ever, he's good at something, but there is no way his dad will ever let him dance. Filled with humor, nuance, and emotion, this novel asks serious questions about what makes a family and what makes a man. I am so excited to share this video from author Jennifer Irwin telling us a bit more about what makes Captain Skidmark so special.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Irwin, the author of Captain Skidmark Dances with Destiny, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my book. So I'm a teacher, and I teach middle grade and high school, grades 8 through 10. And one of the things that I noticed for a long time was that the kids that played hockey in my class often didn't like to read. At the time, I looked around and couldn't really find a whole lot of hockey books out there for the right age group. They were gloomy and mystery stories, and what I really wanted was a funny hockey book that would get my students interested in reading. And that's where Captain Skidmark was born. So I think the main thing that I'd like people to take away, or one of the main things, is that everybody should have an opportunity to be the kind of person that they want to be, and to do the sport or the activity that really fills their soul. I think a lot of times we feel pressure to act a certain way because we're a certain gender, or we have certain family expectations. And I just think that the best thing that we can do for kids, adults can do for kids, and kids can do for each other, is let them be who they are and find a way to support them and love them.
Coming this summer, Monster vs. Boy by Karen Crossing is a fantastical exploration of family, friendship, and generational struggles. Dawes wants to practice recipes of extreme greatness for the Baker's Brawl competition and forget all about his mom, who left him and his sister Jayla with their uncle years ago and never came back. He does not want to see a monster in his closet that no one else can see. Mim wants to explore her closet and listen to stories through the door. She does not want to share her space with the horrible boy outside the closet. When Mim leaves Dawes' closet for the first time, the two learn they're connected in ways neither can explain. While Mim searches the world for a friend, Dawes searches for a way to get rid of her so that he can be normal. Can they break free of each other without losing who they are? Monster vs. Boy is available July 11th. Next up, we've got a new title from Elaine Demopoulos, The Remarkable Rescue at Milkweed Meadow. I'd like to start by sharing the trailer, which Elaine was kind enough to voice over for us.
Let me tell you a story about Milkweed Meadow, my home. It starts in many places, but I'll start with me. I'm Butternut. I live in a burrow with my family. I'm frightened of everything, but all my life my elders have taught me that if I stick to my own kind and don't take foolish risks, I'll be as safe as a rabbit can be. But in Milkweed Meadow, there happens to live a fawn with a broken leg who needs help, and a daring robin eager to be my friend, and a hungry coyote who would love to make a meal out of all of us. This is the story of how I found the courage to face remarkable danger and change the whole meadow along the way.
Exciting stuff. With disastrous scenarios blooming in her mind, Butternut embraces, oh, are we all set? Well, I'm sure that the slides will return eventually, but really, Elaine has said it all. With disastrous scenarios blooming in her mind, Butternut embraces the lesson of her family's stories. Keep your head down and stick to your own rabbit kind. After befriending an incorrigible robin and a wounded deer, hey, slides are back, yes! Thank you guys. Butternut begins to question everything she's been taught. So when the three friends discover a litter of abandoned coyote pups, Butternut must decide whether she can rally her community, help these pups, and be as brave as the heroes in her stories. The remarkable rescue at Milkweed Meadow is available May 16th. I wonder if we can get the slides back for this very last title because I'm very excited to share it. This title is coming in September of 2023. It's called Mascot. So a native-themed school mascot, an 8th grade English class, and the whole town of Rye, Virginia come head-to-head in this compelling novel in verse from award-winning authors Charles Waters and Tracy Sorrell. Cherokee girl Callie Crossland hates the mascot at her new school. She's not the only one. School reporter Priya Bhatt, yes, slides are back. Thank you guys so much. So, Cherokee girl Callie Crossland hates the mascot at her new school, and she's not the only one. School reporter Priya Bhatt and former homeschooler Teresa Ostergaard are repulsed by the chants and slogans they hear at school rallies. Some of their classmates disagree. Franklin Keyes and Sean McIntyre don't want to see their beloved childhood traditions challenged, and Luis Flores just doesn't see why it's such a big deal. When their honors English teacher assigns a debate project about the mascot, eyes are opened, tempers are tested, and the whole town is caught up in the debate. As of November 2022, over 1,000 schools in the US still use native-themed mascots. This incredibly rich and nuanced book is a must-read for school communities across the country who are wrestling with tradition, identity, racism, and justice for their students. Let's take a few minutes to listen to co-authors Charles Waters and Tracy Sorrell as they tell us more about Mascot.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Waters.
CO, I'm Tracy Sorrell.
We're here to talk with you about a book that we have coming out September 5th, 2023, called Mascot from Charlesbridge Publishing.
You know, you really are the one that started this whole process of us working on Mascot together. Why don't you share a little bit about how that came about?
We attended a Highlights Foundation novel in verse workshop. We both had books that were going to come out the following year. And Tracy, you and I bonded, and we thought maybe one day we'll write a book together. And that's something that sometimes people say things like that. Like maybe we'll collaborate. When I said it, I meant it. When I thought about who to collaborate on this project with, Tracy was the first and only person. So if she had said no, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm really grateful that you said yes.
When you contacted me about this idea, I thought, yes, like this is an issue that I have experienced personally, professionally, when I was at the University of North Dakota, and certainly had seen it play out in numerous schools across the country. So it is not an issue that, you know, we're done with. It really is something that communities across the nation are dealing with. And I think that as you look at, you know, sharing this with young readers, a lot of times people say, well, our school doesn't have a Native mascot. We don't have to worry about this, or there aren't any Native people around here. Well, we're all connected to each other. We all have a shared national history. We all live on Indigenous land. And no one group or people or individuals should be objectified. Our hope is that it leads to a broader discussion. And for those who are interested in changing that, of course, we provide some resources in the back, but it really is to spark that discussion. And we know that it's tied to, how invisible and erased we have been as Native nations in the K-12 curriculum. And so there is not this awareness by many people in the population that we're even still here, even though Native people have been vocal about this and working on this issue through the federal courts, and at local levels as well for decades.
Now, do you see why I thought Tracy would be the best person to collaborate on this book with? Listen to that. Listen to that. And so when she shared her excitement as well, I thought this book has a chance. One thing we talked about a lot while working on the book were nuances. I'm a firm believer personally that life has a lot of gray. When doing our research, and we researched quite a bit, we read at least one dissertation and about 75 different articles over a period of 2 years. When you would read why some people were against it, even if you disagreed, you saw in some cases where they were coming from. And I thought that was important. And so did Tracy, in putting that in the story as well, when you read about some of the characters who are against it.
We have to have it reflect reality. Some people may have that information shared with them and change, and others may not, and that really is reflective of our society. And so Charles and I wanted to center those experiences so that people who have been around this issue, as well as people that are newer to it, understand there's a variety of viewpoints and lived realities.
We hope you enjoy the book. In the future, there will be a teacher's guide and all sorts of material to help round out your experience with reading the book.
Widow, thank you.
Bye-bye.
What an amazing conversation. Mascot is on sale September 5th. Digital galleys are available on our landing page at charlesbridge.com/magnificent middle grade. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to my colleague Donna Spurlock, Director of Marketing at dspurlock@charlesbridge.com. You can find galleys, downloadables, video content, and more at charlesbridge.com. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Colette. Sorry about our little tech glitch there. I'm glad to see that our slides are back up and everything is going smoothly. For our final panelists today, Molly Fletcher and Corremo Carrillo. Molly is a marketing professional with 7 years of experience in publishing. She joined Albert Whitman in 2020 and specializes in content strategy and email marketing. Molly hails from Waukegan, Illinois, where Ray Bradbury was born and raised. She recently joined the local historical society, which is working to reopen Ray's childhood library as a museum. Karema joined the Albert Whitman team in early 2022, specializing in content strategy and social media marketing. While her background is mainly in digital marketing, books have always taken a huge chunk of her free time. Thanks for joining us, Molly and Karema.
Thank you, Julia, for that lovely introduction. I'm Molly, and I'm going to be kicking things off today. For those of you who may not be familiar with Albert Whitman, we are a small but mighty independent publisher based just outside of Chicago. And last week, we celebrated our 104th birthday. So shout out to Norton. I think we're both looking pretty good for our age, so not bad. Next slide, please. When our company was founded more than a century ago, our goal was simple: make good books that kids want to read. Today, we continue this tradition, guided by a deeper mission to create stories that also educate and empower children. When we put the right story in the right hands, we can inspire the next generation to make the future brighter for everyone. Now I'm going to pass it off to Karema to talk more about our mission.
Okay, well, we want all of our AW titles to follow the foundations we have, which consist of instilling a love of reading and learning in children of all ages and reading levels, encouraging children to practice empathy and build lasting relationships, sharing diverse perspectives and characters, both real and imagined, that children see themselves reflected in, and lastly, continuing to evolve so that the stories we tell always help children understand the constantly changing world around them. Can I have the next slide, please? And what a better way to kick it off than with some Boxcar Children. The Jessie Files series follows the eldest girl of the Aldens. Jessie is a little older, navigating middle school. Readers will find comfort in the sleuthing they were familiar with in the Boxcar Children, but with new characters and a more contemporary setting. Jessie and her new gang are taking on a whole new world, and with their handy-dandy smartphones. This series includes a strong female protagonist, mysteries, and social and emotional storylines appropriate for kids like Jessie and her friends, middle schoolers. The Campsite Cold Case is the 4th book in the series and follows Jessie and her friends during a camping weekend event. An old case of a missing hiker stirs up trouble for them as they try to solve it. Can I have the next slide? You might have noticed I said the 4th book in the series. Well, what about the others? Don't worry, we'll catch you up. The 1st book in the series is the Friendship Feature, where we follow Jessie on her first big assignment at her school's newspaper. Talk of the Town follows, and we follow Jessie as she investigates trouble between 2 of her best friends, and along the way uncovers what could be an even bigger mystery. Lastly, we have A Dramatic Disappearance. Here, Jessie scores the chance to interview a star performer visiting her town, but things soon go south when the celebrity goes missing days before the show. Solving the mystery is her one shot at making things right. This series is one we hold dear, not just because of its continuation of the Boxcar stories, but because it's aged up. New readers get to experience Boxcar in a time more relatable to them. Can I have the next slide? Next is The Alchemy of Letting Go. This story follows 12-year-old Juniper Edwards after the death of her older sister. Fixated on catching the endangered butterfly her sister had died trying to catch, Juniper finds herself close to the same outcome. But upon waking up, something different happens. Juniper has acquired some new supernatural abilities. Experimenting with the line between science and magic, Juniper wants nothing more but to use her powers to make things go back to how they were. Science and magic can go a long way, but how far can they go to help Juniper navigate the real problem? This story navigates grief and has a strong STEAM theme, exploring connections between science, poetry, and creativity. But before passing it over to Molly, a quick review from Publishers Weekly about Amber Morell's new book. Morell's contemplative debut handles the complexity of grief with a deft touch while addressing serious ethical questions around life, death, and the responsibilities of power. And now on to Molly.
Thank you, Karima. I'm going to be tackling nonfiction for us. So if I can get the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm starting with a new addition to Science in Action, which is a series that provides big picture views of important topics that help kids understand our world today. Climate, Our Changing World, tackles a hot button issue in a non-doomsday-esque fashion by laying out the facts of climate change and at the same time empowering kids to help fight it. Though this topic can be kind of heavy, author Andy Sema balances the gravity of our current situation with a hopeful outlook focused on collective action. The prevailing message is, there is still time to protect what we have if we work together. And Andy knows what he's talking about, or rather writing about. He graduated summa cum laude from the University of Illinois with a double major in environmental sustainability and creative writing. He also won the Janelle Joseph Environmental Writing Award in 2020. Next slide, please. Here are some internals from the book, so you can get a sense of the look and feel, which is more eye-catching and playful than what you might expect for middle grade nonfiction. We also have an excerpt of Kirkus's review of the book, which came to us recently, which in part says that Climate gives young readers easily graspable starting points for understanding both the problem and what to do about it. In addition to fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, Climate covers deforestation, air and water pollution, harmful agriculture practices, and more. And alongside those examples of what's going wrong, Andy spotlights what's going right, including efforts of Indigenous populations to create and maintain sustainable environments. For kids and educators who want to learn more, there's a glossary and recommended reading list at the back. Next slide. I don't want anybody here to miss the other book in the Science in Action series, Vaccines Change the World. It's one of my favorites that we published recently. This definitive guide to vaccines was written by Gillian King Cargyle, host of the STEM Read podcast on NPR. Her goal is to spark a love of reading, learning, and science. And I have to say, she pulls it off in a big way with this book. Vaccines reads more like a story than a collection of facts, and the internal art makes the historical accounts feel fresh and relevant. This title is available now in hardcover and paperback, so I hope you'll check it out. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up with an anthology. AW has a great Jewish picture book collection. You may be familiar with Dear Mr. Dickens by Nancy Chernin, but Coming of Age was our first foray into the middle grade space. This anthology explores the Jewish rite of passage from 13 different perspectives and through a variety of genres like poetry, creative nonfiction, even science fiction. As characters prepare for their ceremonies, they experience a wide range of emotions, from anxiety, embarrassment, and doubt to excitement, pride, and delight. Many authors drew on their own experiences to craft their contributions. In fact, one incorporated entries from the journal she kept as a preteen. So she's a lot braver than I am, for one thing. I also wanted to point out two contributors whose names might look familiar. Jane Yolen wrote The Horseback Librarians, Pubbing with Us, coming this summer. And Stacia Deutsch penned the first 4 Jessie Files books, which Karima was talking about earlier. I posted a couple of review snippets on this slide, but I wanted to mention that in addition to these, E-Train, a 12-year-old booktuber, liked Coming of Age so much that he put together an author panel, which you can watch on YouTube. He got 6 of the authors from the book. I recommend checking it out. Not only is he the target reader for this book, so you can really get a sense of what he liked, but he asks really insightful questions, and he wears an adorable little bow tie, and it's just so charming. So highly recommend checking that out. Okay, next slide, please. That is it for us at Albert Whitman. Please connect with us on social media. Reach out with questions about the titles we talked about today, or anything really. We love to chat with fellow book lovers. I also wanted to mention, if anybody is attending TLA, please stop by our booth and say hello. We also hope to see some of you at ALA Annual this summer on our home turf. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Molly and Karima. And a big thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, title list, slide presentation, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones, like those you see here. Have you heard? Booklist Reader, our new book browsing guide offering reading recommendations to patrons of all ages, is now available in print. Go to booklistonline.com to find out how you can order print copies for distribution at your library. Already subscribe? Booklist subscribers can share issues digitally for free. Visit our website for more details and to see examples of how libraries are sharing Booklist Reader with their patrons. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And one more huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, W.W. Norton and Company, Shadow Mountain Publishing, Disney Publishing, Charlesbridge Publishing, and Albert Whitman. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.